Guys, this video is brought to you by freedomraffle.org. They are giving away a brand new Tesla Model S Plaid. We love doing giveaways and we love it when you guys win these cars. So head to freedomraffle.org to support our Afghan allies and hopefully win a brand new Plaid. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video. Welcome to beautiful northern Colorado. Behind me are three luxury SUVs that a lot of you have been asking, which one of these should you buy? We have the Bmw Ix, the newest, latest, greatest car from BMW, and it's their, flagship electric vehicle. Then we also have the Audi E-Tron, and we also have Tesla's Model X. So, which one of these three should you buy? That's what we're going to help you with today. I also want to mention this is just a quick precursor video to a much more in-depth electric luxury SUV battle that we'll be shooting towards the end of the year or early next year. That will include Hummer EV SUV, Rivian R1S, EQS SUV from Mercedes. A lot of new entrants coming into this market, but for now, these three are on sale right now, and we got to help you make a buying decision as to which one should you spend your cool $100,000 on. I want to say a huge thank you to our friend Brandon from Tesla Flex. He has an awesome YouTube channel and TikTok channel that'll be linked in the description below for bringing his Tesla Model X. Now, you guys have seen this car on the channel many times. I did my first driving review with his car. I also just took it on a range test, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is the first thing here I really wanted to mention. It was the first electric three-row mass market SUV. The Model X has been awesome. It started with a little bit of a rocky service situation. The doors had issues, but the car's been refined so well over time that it really does feel nicely put together, and no question do they last and last. I just did a video with a friend of mine who has well over 200,000 kilometers on his in Europe, and he is just pounding that thing and it's taking all the abuse. So one thing we have as a known quantity for Tesla that we always have to get out of the way with any one of these reviews is reliability is fantastic. They get software updates, they have great driver assistance, and we know for sure that the charging network is just awesome. So if you're doing a lot of long trips, you may not even consider any other option just because of how easy it is to go on a road trip in the Model X. So then we also have the Audi E-Tron. For our European viewers, this is the E-Tron 55. This is the maxed out luxury version. It's called the Prestige trim. And this is a little bit of an older E-Tron. It's actually our personal car. And this was out before the iX was even thought of, or EQS SUV or anything. This was the first German luxury electric SUV. And, it's sort of an adapted combustion platform made into an EV. It's quite thirsty, but it's so comfortable and it's built so well. Now we've put, I want to say, about 8,000 or 10,000 miles on this one in our time with it so far. We've driven it across the country, and even with the not so great range or efficiency, the charging is really quite nice. It holds 150 kilowatts really deep. It's quite luxurious on the inside, and we'll talk about that when we drive it. But it is, compared to these other cars, looking a lot more traditional, and dare I say, a little bit old. I think it's getting to that point where, yeah, okay, we've seen E-Trons for a long time. This one's a 2019. They still sell pretty much the same exact car today with a few little options. You can now get an E-Tron S. They're quite rare, but they have 3 motors. They're kind of cool. But really, this is probably, seemingly the one that's aged the most out of this group, even though the Model X has been around since 2016. And then, conveniently and nicely for you, I've parked the BMW so you don't have to look at the front of it. This is the iX, and it really feels like a step into the future, not only from a driving dynamic standpoint, but also from a construction standpoint of it. So this is built very similar to, forgive some things in the back, the i3 with carbon fiber reinforced polymer throughout. And you can see just how chunky everything here is. There's not so much cargo room compared to like an X5 or an X7 or even the Model X. But I've never been in a vehicle that's as solid, as quiet, and seemingly as well built as this thing really is. So what I'm going to do is walk you through some of the price points on the cars, just typical conversation. I'll walk you front to back on each, sharing where I think they have pros and cons, and then we're going to end the video with a quick drive in each one of these because they all drive totally differently. So on one hand, you might buy a car because you need a lot of range. On the other hand, you might buy something you want to commute in and do most of your driving. That really matters, and these are all wildly different in the way that they feel and go down the road. So let me take you front to back on all of them, and since we're here at the BMW, we'll start with this one. This is a 2023 BMW iX M60. This is the one BMW sent over. I've actually spent the last 3,000 or 4,000 miles with this car. Drove it all the way from here in Colorado to California and back. So I feel like I really know this thing inside and out. And there's a lot that I love about this. One thing I don't love about it, and it still hasn't totally grown on me, is this styling right here. Now, I hate to be the guy to keep harping on about grills and things like that because it's actually working pretty well on the 4 Series, like the i4 looks pretty nice. This in a darker color works, but wow, we have a neighbor of ours who has an iX totally blacked out, and that looks pretty good, but I think you have to get one blacked out from a styling perspective. Interestingly, you can't actually open the hood on this car. This is the only one without a front trunk, but come on in here, I want to show you this. This is how you fill it up with washer fluid. Oh wait, it's locked. I can't believe they actually locked that. That's kind of cool. This is the key, by the way. Since this one's an M60, it's got the M colors. Unlock here on the side. Push this in. What? Come on, unlock. What's going on here, BMW? All right, hold on. We got to figure this out together. Real time. Why is this not opening? Door, open. Everything should be good. Brandon, we just did this a minute ago, didn't we?
Yeah. You just push it in.
Yeah, you just walk up, push it in. Maybe the latch got stuck. Anyway, what was I saying about build quality on this thing?
It's great.
It actually is really nicely built. Maybe not that specific component. That's such a weird issue to have. And I've been showing everyone this. I love that as soon as the camera's on, it freaks out. But that goes into the video because we're out of spec. So front to back, this thing, by the way, looks great. It's the only one with laser headlights at the moment. We have no Matrix availability in the US, but the E-Tron and the iX should be able to get it when it comes out. I don't believe the new Model X's have the Matrix headlights, but the Model S does. Interesting. Come around with me this way. The shape on this is really nice. This is actually spec'd to be the least efficient iX. This is the M60 with 22-inch wheels. And to walk you through the iX lineup, you have the 40, 50, and M60. In America, we only get the 50 and M60. These are the big battery packs. 111 kilowatt hour gross capacity, 105 usable. So huge battery pack, actually the largest capacity out of any of these here. And it is has the most range. This thing is so efficient for its size and goes so far. Its EPA rated range in this configuration with the big wheels is 274 miles. I got 340 miles at 70 miles an hour in our test. That video's live on this channel. And so it just goes and goes and goes. And on a road trip, I found that this vehicle charged to 50% is pretty much identical to our E-Tron at 100% state of charge. Now ours is a little bit older of an E-Tron. They've made a couple changes to the driveline, reducing friction, giving it a couple more percent, but like we're talking a couple percent. This just goes and goes and goes. So really impressed with the range. If you want a range king here, go for an iX, get the Aero wheels. I don't think it'll ever stop. It'll just keep going. Very impressive efficiency here. Also impressive is the drivetrain tuning. All of these options here are 400 volt system class cars. This one has 6-phase motors, I believe front and rear, non-permanent magnet, also a little bit of an adapted form of an induction motor. It's an externally excited electric machine. Really zero drivetrain loss in my impression. You put this thing in neutral, for example, and it just woof, feels like you almost accelerate. Really insane. That's how they get that great efficiency and great range, also down to aerodynamics. So right off the bat, if you're looking for the range king, go for the iX. There's just no question. What's interesting is the M60 trim in this particular one, I actually wouldn't recommend it. Yes, it's quite quick, and we'll talk about that when we drive it, but it's also quite stiff for what it should be. When you drive the E-Tron especially, that thing floats and it really soaks up the bumps. When you hit a bump in a car, you get this very premium feeling of when the suspension drops away and comes back up and you stay level. That's like, to me, it's like a Rolls Royce feeling. We call it wafting down the road, where you're just always in this little oscillation going down. The suspension's doing all the work. You don't get that in the M60. but you do get that in the 50 without the sport tuned suspension. So I think forgo all the sporty specs, save yourself the $10,000 or $15,000 upcharge, which isn't much, to get the M60 Plus. Then you have to drive around with this gaudy M badge on the back, which it's not really an M car, and that's just, you don't want to be that guy driving around with an M badge on your iX. So take all that crap off, get the 50, and just cruise. Really insane. So range king right here. Also feels the most modern, has a really nice interior, best sound system of the bunch, even though they all have great sound systems. This is like a studio reference quality sound system. Bowers & Wilkins. I know I said to just get the 50, you can no longer get the good sound system in the 50. The Harman Kardon in this is pretty good, but it's nothing like the Bowers & Wilkins that's only available in the M60. That would actually be a consideration if you're an audiophile to jump up to the M60 more than the performance. Then we get to the Tesla Model X long range. This is the longest range, most efficient Model X you can get. It has the 20-inch aero wheels, more or less. And what's crazy about this is this went only about, well, it went about 10 miles less than the iX. So the most efficient Model X couldn't match the iX in range. However, this was more efficient. So this has a little bit smaller battery pack. We were able to get displayed about 93 kilowatt hours out of it. However, I'm pretty certain Tesla doesn't show a lot of their losses in that calculation. So I think we actually got closer to 96, 97 kilowatt hours out of it, after talking with some engineering friends of mine at other companies. But still interesting that the longest range X can't match the shortest range iX in the same test. Come around with me this way. Brandon, would you mind popping the front trunk? The key to Model X, the real, I would say, USP, unique selling point, is, by the way, aftermarket power. That's why it didn't go as far as the iX in range. You added the weight of that. Is the space in this. This has a huge front trunk. It has a huge rear trunk. And currently it's the only one available in this lineup with 7 seats. Now the EQS SUV, Rivian R1S, those will have 7 seats, but out of these 3, if you have to carry around your family and your family's friends, the Model X is really your only option. Come around with me this way. The Model X, you kind of have to buy into the Tesla lifestyle. Now, I certainly have. I own 2 of them. I really like them, but I also appreciate other cars. And to be fair, there are some compromises here, but also for a lot of people, they like the clean design of the inside. Sure, you're not going to have this rock solid feeling of pure silentness driving around in some of these German tanks. But what you do get is a really cool spacious interior. This particular one is a 6-seat configuration. You get half a steering wheel, which for a lot of people is exciting and cool, and it feels like a spaceship. You get the coolest windshield ever. Take a look inside. You can take a look, pan up. Just comes all the way up above your head. And by far what you're getting with the Model X over any other option is the best software in the business. The way that the app integrates with the car, the way that the car knows where the chargers are. It has plug-in charge. It's the only option here with plug-in charge. I believe new E-Tron has it actually, but ours does not. And it's just like, from a tech standpoint, far superior to any of these in terms of integration. Take a look at the trunk space in the rear. No fancy construction here, no carbon fiber, just metal, plastic, some polymer stuff here or there. But overall, this is the cleanest design, I would say, interior. I love the white seats. It's a great place to be. And we'll talk about it when we drive, but where the Model X really loses out is in the way that it drives, in my opinion. When you get into these cars, you can be like, oh, this was a car first, and then they made it electric, and then they adapted it to try and, I don't know, do all the fun stuff. This is like, let's start with fart mode and work backwards. Then we get to the Audi E-Tron, which is the hardest sell out of the 3, if I'm totally honest. It's a little bit less expensive, and I'll talk about price here in a second, but it has the least amount of range. So the E-Tron was really a pioneer, and it came out almost too early for its time, in my opinion. This car, if it launched in 2021 instead of 2019, late 18, I think it would have been better received to the market. The problem was, when this car came out, there was nowhere to charge it. There was no countrywide DC fast charging network. And it was kind of just like a wonderfully designed car, but we didn't have the infrastructure to support it. And what's interesting is, yes, I know the used car market has crept up, but as more charging stations have gone in, as this car has become more viable to own, the price is actually shot way up. So this car would have been $20,000, $25,000 less just 2 years ago than it is today. And I think that we would have seen a bit of that regardless of the market happening. So let me show you around the e-tron here. This one, again, being the Prestige, this is luxury trim. So massaging seats, smoothest suspension. They all have air suspension in the US, and just insanely smooth. The thing is, this really competes with the iX50, not the M60. The e-tron S competes with the M60, and I would have the same comments about the e-tron S. That car's a bit too stiff. Yes, it's very fast. I had a lot of fun. You can drift it. I have a whole video on the e-tron S, over 500 horsepower. Really cool car. I think if you're going for an electric SUV, go for max comfort. You're removing the combustion engine. Go for ultimate luxury. That's why we selected this trim here. Now, I've said maybe not the most positive things about the e-tron so far. However, it is the best to drive, and I think the best to live with every day, because there's no frills, it's no nonsense, it's got pretty good UI. But the thing about the e-tron is just the way everything is weighted, the way everything is placed. Let me give you an example. Opening the door handle in this just opens so nice. There's no other car. When you do the Model X or the iX, it's a little bit clunky, it's a little bit weird. This is just bank vault levels. Every input, you can tell someone named Klaus spent like 4 years working on it. It's really amazing. Take a look at the inside too. It smells nice. The car has scents that comes into it. It's got a great sound system. Bowers & Wilkins here as well. Really recommend it. It bumps. It's really good. A little bit warmer, more bass heavy than the iX. But to me, just the whole way of exiting and entering this car, the way everything is weighted and feels like you just can't. This car is all about the intangibles. When you look at this on paper, it's like, why would anyone even consider this old raggedy thing? But to me, even today, new, this is kind of what has my heart. So let's talk price, and then we'll drive all of them. And let's start with the e-tron. These have actually become relatively inexpensive over the years. There's baser trims. However, when you start getting into the lower option e-trons, they kind of feel like that. All of the smooth grain leather has gone away, more plastic in there, no more double glazing on the windows. And so in my opinion, if you're going for an e-tron, you really got to spec it up. You need to get the massaging seats. And I forget exactly what it's called today. They have an equivalent to the Prestige. It might still be called the Prestige, but maybe it's called the Black Optic Pack or something like this. But the thing is like totally blacked out, maxed out. It's like $90-something thousand. And in my opinion, if you're going e-tron, that's the way to go. However, the only way you could select the e-tron is if it's really not your road tripping car. And for us, it's not. We use this around town. We take it up to the mountains occasionally, but we do most errands around here, and we have other cars to go on long distance trips with. This can certainly do it, and it's fine. But if you're going to be doing a ton of road tripping, no question, either one of these two options should factor into the decision, and you should look past the e-tron. But for everything else, for driving around the city, the way it feels, again, I'll take you for a drive. This is great value for money. Then we get to the Model X, and Teslas have gotten crazy expensive recently. Everyone's complaining about dealership markups going, 10, 15,000 over. Tesla obviously is direct sales to consumer. It's the easiest buying experience out of any of these cars. You don't have to haggle on pricing. You could just literally buy it on an app, and you just go to your local center and pick it up. It's amazing. But they've gotten quite expensive. This thing's 110 grand in today's money. And so what is it?
130.
130.
I bought it for 110.
You bought it for 110.
After tax.
Oh my God. It's $130,000. And I got to tell you, yeah, the app's great. The nav's great. It has really good range. It's very efficient. I don't know if I could spend the extra money over an iX or over an e-tron. And that brings me to the iX. This thing maxed out, has every option, is 113. So not only does it go farther, it's quieter, it's built seemingly much more like a bank vault. It's quite a bit cheaper, and but it is uglier. So we have to go, it's hard to be uglier than a Model X, and the iX definitely gets that one. Not from the back though, the back of the iX looks amazing. So this thing's 113. My perfect spec iX50 is about $95,000 to $98,000, which puts it right similar to money as the Audi E-Tron maxed out. And they start, I think, in the high 80s, something like this. So to me, it's like, wow, Tesla's selling the Model X for so much more money. However, for a lot of people, regardless of the money, this would be the only option they can consider. 7-seat, best UI in the biz, and the best charging network out there. And that charging network could be the key to to having seamless, easy, reliable long distance travel to not. And that could be worth the extra $20,000 or $30,000 over the competition. So what do you say we drive the Model X first, because it's the oldest one here, but it's been updated. It's a really cool car. Then we'll drive the iX, and we'll finish up with the underdog, the E-Tron, just to share why I personally love it so much. You join me in the Model X, which I've spent a lot of time in this car. Thank you, Brandon, so much for that. And I figured what we'll do is I'll talk about the front seat. Brandon will talk about the back seat. By the way, follow Tesla Flex. And so here we go. The cool thing about a Tesla is how everything operates. It's so well thought out. Everything's sort of integrated. Also, one of the most amazing viewership experiences living here in the mountains. When you drive through canyons in this car, it's just insane seeing the scenery come by. I've also shared my comments on the yoke. I actually think it's fine for daily driving. I don't like it for all the drifty stuff that I like to do. So I own a car with this yoke, and because we're gonna do a lot of track stuff, I'm putting a round wheel on. But for daily driving, it's fine. My dad actually owns a Model S with the yoke. Do we sound like Tesla lovers yet? And he loves it. And what do you think of the yoke?
I didn't like it at first, and I mean, I like it now, and I'm kind of accepted it, but hopefully when they do that to the Model 3 and Y, it's not the yoke and it's just the wheel with the actual buttons on it. Right,
yeah. Okay, well that could be interesting to see what happens. So sitting here, the cool thing about a Model X is there's no start button, there's no stop button, and this is like the daily usability stuff that adds up over time. That's nice. You walk up to the car, the door auto presents. Most of our viewers already know all of the auto door stuff, but foot on the brake, car is on, and it already knows which direction I want to go. I don't have to even select a direction. I can do that here if I want to. And it's just like the easiest thing to just get in and go. So I love that. There's also a few different driving modes in this particular car. So we have fully adjustable suspension, which is kind of nice, and a huge upgrade from early Model X suspension. So for example, I'm gonna raise us to high, and it will actually automatically raise at certain locations that you go by. And I've turned that off for this one so it doesn't raise every time Brandon goes past. But take a look at this. We're just coming out of here. I've raised the suspension up on the screen. We don't bottom out at all, super easy. And then I can go back to low. I actually did that automatically, which is really nice. We can also change the damping and everything. But these are SUVs meant to come, drive you around. We're gonna use comfort mode. You also have different acceleration levels from chill to insane. And I would say, there's two different versions of Model X on the market. There's the Model X, this one, which is just called Model X. It was called the Long Range. And then you also have the Plaid that's available, and the Plaid is truly insane. It's a 3-motor, crazy supercar with 7 seats available, and it really is crazy. But this thing gets off the line pretty well. For example, no one's really behind us, so from a stop, floor it, goes pretty good, and then at about 40 miles an hour, it really kicks. So I bet from like 60 to 100 miles an hour. What do you think about this versus a Plaid? Do you think it'd be pretty close?
I think I'd be pretty close after like a second or two, because obviously, so you get up to 60 really quickly.
Yeah, the thing is, the Plaid is all about that off-the-line launch. This doesn't really give you the crazy off-the-line punch, but it's really not slow. And it actually would be interesting to see how this feels compared to the iX M60. But from a driving standpoint, the input to the accelerator pedal, the way regen works, the way one-pedal driving works, it's by far superior to anything on the market. The way that everything is calibrated to just be perfect from drivetrain tuning standpoint is unmatched still in the industry today, in my opinion. The one thing that the Model X doesn't have a lot of are brakes. And that's the same with Model S. But it's fine for daily driving. It's just like not a track car. None of these are. And so for cruising around, doesn't matter. The brake pedal itself just doesn't feel that great. It's very squishy near. I'd go pretty deep into it. So from a driving standpoint, we're not going to do anything crazy. I've already shared driving reviews on each of these cars. I think the Model X is probably the loudest out of the 3 by far, and it also is the least smooth out of the 3. Especially when we're talking about the iX50, which is the one that I wish we had for this comparison. But overall, this thing is cool to drive. It's the right size. It by far is superior from a technical standpoint, having the best screen in the business. I personally love the interior, even though the materials feel a little bit cheaper than the other cars. you know, I just think it works. What you're paying for with the Model X, where's the extra money going, is where I think a lot of people struggle to realize when they look at specs on paper. What you're doing is you're buying into everything Tesla has to offer, which is charging, this UI, and then all of the updates that come along with it. This is a supported product that we know will be reliable, last a really long time, with amazing drivetrain tuning. And, you know, the other cars may corner better or be a little bit more wafty down the road, but at the end of the day, like, our E-Tron doesn't get software updates. It has pretty much no after-sales support. The BMW iX does support some over-the-air updates, but not all. Sometimes you got to go back to the dealer for them. And, you know, from my opinion, it's just kind of nice to get a new car every 2 weeks with updates, which is what Tesla does a great job of. Let's not forget about the autopilot system as well. Big improvements coming to driver assistance. I think the whole FSD thing that's not my thing, you guys know. I think like they're kind of pushing the limits in certain areas with what cameras can do. But at the end of the day, I use autopilot all the time for long trips. This one is a camera-only system. They've removed the radar from this car, and it does phantom brake from time to time. So while it is really advanced, you can tell they're pushing the limits, and some of those flaws from being right on the bleeding edge of driver assistance do come back to, like, okay, you just gotta, like, be prepared. The thing may slam on the brakes from time to time, which for a lot of people is totally unacceptable, and they just wouldn't even consider a Model X because of it. But what's the backseat review like? What do you think back there? You have a screen, you have huge room, the captain's chairs look great.
It's really comfortable. I mean, just the seats, they kind of, like, the seatbelt really wraps around me, like, tight. Like, I wish it would go higher up.
Mm-hmm. Because that's, like, because it's integrated into the seat, right?
Yeah, but it's still really roomy back here.
Yeah.
I guess if I was in the third row, I probably could fit just fine if the seat wasn't all the way back, too.
Right, and this is the only option with a third row, so there's no point in even doing a third row comparison, because it's just got seats back there. But yeah, in the 5 or 7 seat configuration, the middle folds down. In the 6-seat configuration, they just slide forwards. They don't fold down. But there's a ton of Model X videos out there. I feel like everyone kind of understands this car. We used this first because this is sort of the known quantity to a lot of our viewership who might be Tesla owners or Tesla enthusiasts. And you can't go wrong with a Model X. I don't see that many of them on the roads anymore. What's going on with that, Brandon?
I just saw my first refresh, like, last night. First refresh I had in Fort Collins.
What's going on? Are they just not building them, or what?
They're delivering them to places that have a lot more GDP money.
Oh yeah, so they're not coming out to
California. They're not going up very far up like Littleton.
Yeah,
they are pumping them out because I see them all the time when I go home.
Okay, but not up here in northern Colorado.
I don't think Loveland delivers very many.
Yeah, I didn't see any when I was over there at the service center. But still, I think if you wanted to buy a Model X, they hold their value really well in the used market. Like, what's your impression of, if you had to sell this, what do you think you could get for it?
I had an offer in July for $130,000.
Wow.
And now the offer is closer to like $115,000.
Okay.
With like 10,000 miles on it.
So that's not bad.
Still sell it if I want.
It's not bad. So there's very little ownership risk when coming with a Model X because there's such demand. People are spending the money for them. So let's jump in the iX, which is over there, and see how that drives in comparison. Welcome to the inside of the BMW iX, and really what a night and day difference getting out of the Model X into the iX. First of all, leather everywhere. You can option animal-free interior, which, why are we still putting leather in cars? Aside from the environmental stuff, but like, it's just not a good wearing product. So I would spec this with the Sensatech in the light color. I think looks the best. All right, so we got a whole different strategy of interior here. First of all, the seats, the Model X seats are pretty firm, but they're okay. I would say, like, if you just had a seat, that would be that. This is quite wide, no bolstering. You can tell BMW wanted this to have a very lounge vibe to it, and I think they've succeeded. In terms of turning on the car, you actually have to hit this start-stop button, and then there's some fanfare along with it. This is very German, the way everything happens here. It's like German trying to be trendy. And it's totally different. You can see just the size of the screen is so much smaller and so much more complicated. There's a lot going on here. And then even down here with the controls, this is how you input all of your stuff. This one, the M60, has the glass controls. This is looking beautiful. I think it's a really cool idea. In practice, totally sucks. I really have grown to hate all of these inputs. First of all, when I'm driving down the road, I'm getting blinded left and right from all of these shiny stuff. I mean, literally just right in the face. So I had to put a shirt over this when I was on a road trip recently to stop from getting blinded. I was like, wow, that's not a good design decision. And then when it's bright here, you can't actually see what any of these things are. At nighttime is when this works the best, when everything's backlit. But during the day, especially if you're just driving the car for the first time, you can't really see what any of these things do. Now, it is pretty cool because it's quite a haptic feedback when you touch it, and then you can pull up all of your stuff. And it's just so complicated. Germans make everything so complicated. And so just to talk about iDrive 8, or is it iDrive 9 we're on? I think it's iDrive 8. There's just menus upon menus upon menus. It can do so many cool things. For example, it can roll down your window when you get to a certain point. Just like the Tesla, you have built-in Spotify, one of the best sound systems. But look at all these sub-menus that you can go into and do stuff. And just as an example, if we go here to driving settings, and then within there we go into charging, look at how many settings we have within here. I mean, it's laid out so different than Tesla, and it just shows how far ahead Tesla is from a UI drivetrain, a UI HMI standpoint. To me, that just works so much better. This takes some time, but I do like that you have a physical iDrive control knob to go in. I've been an iDrive fan for a long time. I've owned multiple BMWs with the previous generation system, and I do like that you can set your charging target just like the Tesla. What's funny is all the way down to 20%. I don't know why you do that. All the way up to 100%. You can set your AC charging limits here, and there's a really interesting one for people who live in Phoenix or hot weather environments. A lot of times you'll plug in the garage and like your fans will go crazy forever on especially an older Model S or something. Here, you can actually restrict the amount of noise that your car will make, and it will make the fans quiet down when plugged in, but it might reduce your charging power to do that. I keep it as unrestricted because I want the most amount of charging power without compromise, as always. You guys know my gig, my deal here. So let's go for a drive. The car starts up in any of the modes. You can choose any of these modes to start up with. And I think what I should do is, that was the gesture control, by the way, going on. It's very complicated. If I want my massage seat on, I've programmed it that I can point 2 fingers at the display like that, and now my massaging seat is going. Interestingly, only on the driver's side, not on the passenger side. Sorry, Alyssa.
Yeah.
They cheaped out. I really think the seats are one of the downsides here. I spent a lot of miles in this car, and I just find that they're not supportive. They don't come forwards enough. So take a look here. It's like, why does the seat end back here? It should come out. Or remember, the BMWs had the adjustable lower thigh support. It needs some of this. I don't know what's going on here. And I know I'm kind of sounding down on the iX, but I want to get all the negatives out of the way first. One thing that really drives me nuts is Germans are really particular about drive modes. Tesla has never really taken this approach, but they want, to adjust the suspension, the brake pedal feel, the steering response. All of these things can be changed. What's interesting is when you hit my modes, which is like your normal sport or eco switch in an older BMW, it's not just about the driving experience, it's the full vehicle experience. So when I hit relax, for example, the screens change, the climate warms up a little bit. It dims the roof glass to be opaque. What is it when you can't see through? Opaque. Yeah. And then you can you can open it up later. So it's more of a whole vehicular experience rather than the actual driving dynamics. Relax backs off the suspension to waft a little bit. It makes the screens have less information. So I actually found that I drove the car on a road trip in efficient mode most of the time because it has huge range, and I was just doing big stretches. 200 plus miles between chargers wasn't unheard of at all at highway speeds. And again, you're not DC fast charging it up to full every time. So let's just drive it in the personal setting, which is a normal thing. The only way that you can adjust all of your driving settings is when you go into sport, which I have it set to back off some of the traction control. I can go here to settings and then adjust everything like this. It even changes the seat and a whole bunch of stuff, but we'll try sport mode in a bit. But for now, let's just put it in normal. Your shifter down here, you push it forwards for a reverse. And then there's 2 different driving strategies. There's single pedal drive and 1 pedal drive. That means the same thing. There's basically coasting like this right now in drive, so it's not going to slow down unless I hit the brakes, which is a blended regen and friction brake pedal. Or I can just put it in B mode, which makes everything 1 pedal. That's how I find I drive the car for the most time. One thing I really hate about the iX is the steering wheel, surprisingly. I actually dislike it more than the yoke because my hands shouldn't be going in this direction at the 9 and 3. And then if I try and hold it where I would normally hold it, here it's like, what the heck's going on? It's like this trapezoidal thing. I think the reason they did this is so that the eye tracking for the instrument, for the driver assistance, can see your eyes. It can do full hands-off driving below 40 miles an hour with Driving Assist Plus. Works amazing. And really one of the best driver assistance systems in this car. Really nice. But the wheel itself just is awkward to maneuver, I would say. It does have rear steering, the only one here with rear steer, and it's just as magical as it always is. It's only a few degrees. It's not like the EQS SUV, but man, does it make this big beast so easily maneuverable in small spaces. And I think the rear steer is worth everything. I just love that feeling of pivoting the car in and out for a daily driver. It's really wonderful. In terms of power, get Brandon's reaction really quick because he hasn't been in it. And what do you think?
It's quick. Definitely quick.
Yeah, do you think it's definitely more immediate than the Model X?
Yeah, probably because it tapers off and it gets higher up.
Actually, it doesn't.
It doesn't?
It stays flat.
What's the 0 to 60?
3 something.
Okay.
It's pretty good, and it gives you even more power when you use launch mode. So if I go into sport here, no one's behind us again, this will just be the launch zone. I go left foot hard on the brake, floor it with the right. Feel that pulsing?
Yeah.
Weird. And then, and it gives an extra 20% boost when you do that. That's the problem with the iX, though, is actually the drivetrain calibration. Seatbelt, let me go, thank you. And that is that the throttle pedal itself, I'm going to try to do my best to explain this to our viewers, has a minuscule delay in it, which means as my foot goes down, the car's trying to catch up with software. And if you put your foot down pretty quickly, I think the car over anticipates the amount of power that you want, because I'm just going to move my foot a little bit just for reference. I just went down a little bit. Isn't that crazy?
It's really like
just
jumpy.
like whoa. And then same thing when you lift off. I lift off, boom, we get a big regen instantly. It doesn't roll into these things very smoothly. And so we noticed the same thing with the BMW i4, and it's like, it almost feels like it's too sharp of a drivetrain input to send as a signal. Tesla does it perfectly because they're so instant, it just matches your foot throughout. This is like trying to play catch up, and it makes the thing, honestly, hard to drive quickly in a sense, because the car jolts back, your foot moves off, and so it's really unrefined pedal inputs. However, if you just drive the thing normally, put it in personal mode, which is like everyday balance settings and stuff, yeah, it's totally fine. If you're pretty smooth with your inputs and letting off, totally great. One thing about the iX is that I think it's actually the quietest vehicle I've ever been in. It feels, you can't hear a thing on the outside, and they did it with single pane glass. I don't know how that's possible, but truly insane. It does have active noise cancellation and a few other things, but one of the most refined road tripping experiences. I mentioned the sound system as well. Truly amazing. So here comes the iX like summary. On paper, it's the one to buy out of these three, I think, especially the 50 trim. It's a very smooth, capable car, has rear steer, all of the inputs are nice. The interior is wonderful to look at. I'm not sure it works every day in usability, but you do start to figure out where these buttons are over time, and I think that becomes less of an issue. But this just, to me, screams fault of engineering, I think. And it's got pretty good massaging seat on the driver's side if you have it. Like, the whole strategy here is good. The app, the BMW app, has gotten a lot better, so that works really well. And so to me, it's like, if I had to do long trips out of any of these three, the iX would be the one to go for, because it's so much less fatiguing on the highway. It has amazing driver assistance, but again, weird little quirks. You can't adjust your distance to the car in front on the steering wheel. You have to go like 6 menus deep to set how far away you want to be. Like, just put this same left-right control on this side, but no, you can't adjust your distance. And I have to say, I have a whole road trip video coming on our Out of Spec Motoring channel on this car, and if you haven't fallen in love with this car yet, now you will after that trip. Charges really well at about 200 kilowatts peak. I have a whole video on how this car charges. It's just a wonderful all-around car, and anyone that is considering not buying this car because of the looks, you're silly. You just need to spend some time with this to get a sense of the quality of the way things are put together, the way that it drives. But again, I would skip the M60 and go for the 50. I know I've made that point a bunch. So there's the BMW iX for you, which to me feels like the bargain of the century when you compare it to the $130,000 Tesla Model X. You know, we don't know what resale values are going to be like on this or anything like that, but if we're just looking at the numbers that are stated on the website, this is one hell of a bargain for under 100 grand for a nice spec one that goes farther, that drives significantly better than the Model X. But there are some annoyances. Steering wheel, you get blinded going down the road from the controls here. But let's hear the backseat review. What do you think after spending some time back there?
I really like how everything feels. Like it just feels really premium. It feels like honestly how Tesla should be. But like I did notice like this. I mean, I guess Tesla isn't the only one that has these types of issues. Like where just panels are just kind of loose and.
Interesting.
But like it's still. I mean, the materials definitely feel very premium, and I like the lighting.
Yeah, the lighting is good, but not great, especially up front because they put the lighting here, but there's no ambient lighting in front of you or here in the center, which I feel like Germans typically go crazy with ambient lighting.
We'll see that very soon.
The E-Tron has gone crazy. They've even lit up the seatbelt buckles. But one thing that's cool is pull the little ISOFIX tab at the seat. No, right down here where the child seat locks into. Take a look at how this is done. Isn't that kind of cool?
I was wondering what that, like, I was trying to pull on it, I didn't know where it was going.
Yeah, and then you just kind of have to manually push it back down and then it closes. But I think that's such like a cool little...
It does feel a little weird on my back.
Oh, you do feel it?
Yeah.
I wonder if you can tuck it in.
Maybe, or it had to be tucked in kind of weird.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, it still doesn't look right that way. Anyway, there you go. The iX, very innovative car with radiant heating from the front. These heat up. These heat up, this heats up. In the winter time, you're not going to be cold in this car, that's for sure. And you got a lot of battery pack to heat stuff up. So this to me is one of the best products to ever come off the BMW line. I know I pointed out some flaws, but in terms of its intended use as a long distance road tripper and daily driver, this ticks all the boxes. I've really enjoyed driving this every day for the last 2 weeks. Let's jump into our e-tron. All right, so one actual problem with the iX, and it might just be this particular car, but every door does it, is take a listen to the door thunk sound. It has to be one of the cheapest door thunk sounds I've ever heard. Hear that?
The back one, that one's worse.
Back one's not good either. Let's take a look. So it's just crunchy when you open the door. Remember I showed you the e-tron silent bank vault? Oh, that was pretty good.
Well, I was weighted like a can.
Yeah, and I heard it when you shut it. It wasn't good. It just feels so, plasticky. But I guess it is CFRP, so I don't know. That's not a good thunk. Let's go to the best thunk in the business, the e-tron. And now you join me in the e-tron. And there is just something about this car that fits me so well. And the seats are perfect. So I'm going to put my seatbelt in the light up seatbelt buckle, which is very cool. I'm also going to shut the door. Take a listen to this. Bank vault and then silence. Crazy. So you do have to have a start button, which is old school. The e-tron feels a bit old school to me, actually. So let's just adjust the fan here. So you can see how you can do this with all the controls here. It's all digital. It's all right here where my hand sits. There's no reaching for another screen. Ergonomically, this is really nice. Software in this car, though, isn't perfect, and it honestly, where the issues become is when you have two drivers, which we do with this car. These are the things you learn with when you own a car. When Alyssa switches it to her profile and then I get in and switch it to mine, it takes a good 30 seconds for all these screens to reconfigure to what I need. And I'm trying to like put the AC on and it's blaring and the screens just go blank. And they basically have a, loading up your personal settings message or something. And that's pretty infuriating. Ours is an older 2019 e-tron, and the newer ones have a slightly faster processor, but I've been in them and it feels pretty similar to me. So anyway, in the e-tron, just amazing. Can put the massaging seat on. So many more options because this is a true massaging seat, not just a air bladder moving up and down. So I'm a really big fan of these seats in this car. The way the steering wheel is, it's a pretty big steering wheel. To me, again, I can't stress this enough. I sit nice and low. I just fit perfectly. And in the iX, I feel like I'm sitting on top of the car and the dashboard's quite low. Same in the Model X. Here, I'm like in a machine that's built to be driven. It's really wonderful. And everything is the highest possible quality leather. Everything that looks like aluminum is pretty much aluminum. You have ambient lighting all throughout the car. Even this e-tron lights up. You have beautiful lights everywhere. So well thought out. Head-up display as well in this car, just like the iX. The one area where the e-tron doesn't do so well on is the specs on paper. So the range isn't that great. So let's put it in reverse and go, and we'll talk about it. This one has 2 induction motors, which means it doesn't really give you a hard kick off the line like a permanent magnet motor would, but also, you know, the iX doesn't have those, and that has like a launch control. This is just not the sporty one. And so it's pretty not fast, but I gotta tell you, I never even like floor this thing. I just cruise and waft. I guess before we get going, we should talk a little bit about their drive modes. Very similar to their combustion cars. You have all the different drive modes that affect suspension height, and you can even queue up your own individual one, however you want that to feel. And I think that works pretty well. For me, I drive the car in comfort, which is the suspension dampers backed all the way down, ride height a little bit again, so that suspension can work below you and you can kind of keep the same movement. The steering is a pretty slow steering rack, and I kind of like that because you have to put in, you got to work the wheel a little bit, which is honestly a nice and premium feeling to be able to do. The iX is a little sharp. The Model X, you have to deal with that yoke. Here, it's just, to me, like, okay, this is like what a limousine should drive like. I believe in Europe you can option rear steer on the e-tron, but not here in America is my understanding. This one at least doesn't have it, and it has pretty much every option. There are some fake noises that come through, mostly from the outside for pedestrian warning though. I think, you know, at least in terms of the car, you never hear the drivetrain in this. The Tesla has the loudest inverter noise and all of these things when you floor it. This is pretty dead silent. What I am going to do though is show you some of the acceleration. So we'll swap the car into dynamic mode, which drops it down, engages the boost function for full power. And what we'll do is, I don't think I've actually ever launched our e-tron, Alyssa. Have you?
Yeah.
You have? Even with brake boost and everything?
No, I don't know how to do
All right,
that.
so left foot hard on the brake, flooring it with the right, and
Woo!
I could walk faster than this.
Yeah. You know, I'm just going to mention something. I personally love that about this because it's not as nauseating, and I have the foot pedal control, and it's just more comfortable to drive a car that doesn't launch so quickly.
It's not.
I'm
this
okay
car will
with it.
never go back into dynamic mode again.
I'm okay with
It's
it.
meant to just cruise.
And so many people complain whenever they get in. They're like, oh, this is an electric car, but it's not that fast. I'm like, it doesn't need to be.
But it's faster. I mean, it's faster than most combustion cars. Like,
Right.
you can pass anyone like this, and
It's
it'll cruise
smooth.
at well over 100 miles an hour without
Yeah.
even feeling like anything. And yeah, smooth comfort. And that's what I wanted out of this car, which was, I just have to run to Starbucks in the morning, or I got to go down and you know, film a video, go down to Boulder, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I just wanted something that can just coddle me like a baby and bring me there. And this does that. It's pretty amazingly comfortable. And it's just great to just nicely waft along. The other cars don't waft. This one wafts. And so to me, I love that about this because it gives me everything I'm looking for out of a car. Let's talk driver assistance. Not class leading by any means. Doesn't do active lane changes like the other cars do. But one thing that is really cool is it tells you how long the red lights will be red for, which is kind of nice. I got to figure out how to get to that thing.
You can see it
Oh yeah, right here.
Right there.
Yeah, and so basically it'll tell you how long lights will be red or green for. It doesn't seem to be working right here at the moment because this is a brand new light that's not part of the system. And so it's going actually up for the next traffic light up. But in our town, there's only like 12 cities in the country that are enabled for this. Somehow Fort Collins is one of them. We pay, I don't know, $100 a year or something like that for
Yeah,
this.
for the Google Maps.
For whatever
Yeah.
integration, and it's the best service ever. Because I could be like, oh, light turns red in 4 seconds, wide open throttle, like let's get through it. So it's pretty awesome. To me, this car is not about the UI. It's not about any of this stuff. There are a lot of things you can do. It has a pretty good app. Actually, all 3 cars have a pretty good app. You can set your climate control from each. You can set your charging settings from each. You can see your current charge level. They all work pretty quickly. Tesla is still by far the best as to what you can do with your phone and everything.
Yeah, this app is pretty laggy. So,
Yeah, it is
but
pretty slow.
it works in the end. But you just gotta wait a little bit.
But the one thing the e-tron doesn't have is a one-pedal driving mode or function. And so you have to use the left paddle to increase your regen, which it's not that strong off throttle. Now this car does have a lot of regen, but it does it by blending the brake pedal into friction. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't have an issue with that. was annoying at first when I first got into the car that you have to
pull the paddle
pull the
every
paddle
time you start it up.
every time you start it up and every time you go off of any type of cruise control.
Right. Yeah. You always got to. You're just doing this the whole time.
I feel that so much of a difference that I mean, it's just automatic now that I just feel the car accelerating a lot more and like, oh, okay, I got to pull the paddles.
And you know how I actually drive the car, which is not with the regen stuff on for the most part.
Oh, you like the normal driving modes?
I really like I like the coasting in this car, and I love the brake pedal. I think it's the best brake pedal in the business. The way that, and you know, that's a nerd thing to say, right? But I love the way that it feels. It's got auto hold, of course. And so for me, this car is all about the little inputs, the way it feels when I can put in some steering. It's got the perfect ratio for comfort. It's got one of the most amazing suspensions. It feels heavy because it is heavy. And for us, not having that much range works pretty well. So let's jump out of the car because it looks like it's about to rain. We'll park all three next to each other over here, and I guess we'll pick a winner for each type of person, and then I'll let you know which one I would rather have of the three. How about that?
And Brandon, what is your back seat comment? What do you think?
It feels really nice. Almost a little bit nicer than the BMW, honestly. Just with Alcantara. And
just don't mind the dog slobber and drool. This is the dog car,
yeah,
so.
That's to be expected. There's a lot more lights. I didn't know you meant like it was a seatbelt light.
Yeah, it's literally around the whole thing. At night, it's just all lit up, and you can actually choose the exact color you want for each of your profiles. Yeah, it's really nice. Yeah.
Yes, but compared to the Model X, what do you think? Model X has a lot more room.
Yeah, I mean, this just feels like more like a passenger car. Like I wouldn't want to drive it because it's just slow and I like going fast. But if I'm like a mom with like 2 kids or something,
It's a great mom car.
Kids like bring them in this
Soccer mom car.
It's like the perfect car.
2 max though.
And it has a
max.
small little frunk.
It does have a small,
I'll show you.
really, really tiny.
Let's
For a
show
little
it.
lunchbox.
Oh, and a great big container right here on the side.
Oh yeah, I always forget about that. What's in there?
I don't think anything at the moment. Yeah, empty. But just really nice. Everything really well thought out. It's very Audi. It's like Audi made an Audi and then made it electric first.
Right.
Or electric second, excuse me.
Second, yeah.
And I like that the doors are electric, so I can just pull on the handle halfway. I don't need to pull the mechanical lock.
It's nice.
It's got a big sunroof.
Oh.
Are you going to make them wait for this to open?
Yep. All right, let's go.
Let's go. Under the hood, we have one of the world's smallest frunks in existence. Under here, there you go. This is a nice charging cable.
That has never been used.
Well, it's been used from the previous owner, but not from us.
No.
Yes, because you can see, Alyssa, that it's all, look.
No, this one hasn't been used.
Ah, the 110 outlet.
Yeah.
So that would basically, this car's so inefficient you would lose range.
Yeah, you can't do anything with that.
So I guess it's time for the final thoughts. And it all starts with the Tesla Model X, where we started. To me, the Model X is, out of these three, I personally would not choose. It all comes down to price. It's $130,000 more. It's at least $30,000 to $40,000 more expensive than these two options, and it doesn't really have anything material to back it up. It has a lot of technology to back it up. It's the most efficient. It has the best charging network. But again, for me, I get to make YouTube videos of road trips, and it's much more interesting to me to see the CCS networks than the Tesla networks at the time. Now for you, if you want the most amount of space, proven reliability, all of the positives of all the technology and UI, the Model X is the no-brainer choice. And if you want the fastest one, you can get a Plaid that absolutely shreds. So for me, the Model X is out. For you, maybe the Model X is in. And then we have the newcomer to the group, the BMW iX, by far feeling so much more modern than the E-Tron. It's really years ahead, and you get a sense that it's a newer product. However, I've just not been able to bond with the car in the way that I wanted to. I don't like that I sit on top of it. I don't like the odd shaped steering wheel. I don't like the throttle inputs. And so there's a lot that I do like. When you put it in sport mode, it really does shred, and you can actually oversteer the car when you dial it into the right settings on power. But then there's no way to disable stability control completely. You can only go half off. And so then I'm like sideways, and then it grabs brakes and shuts down the fun. So it's not a great performance car, obviously not intended to be, because you can't drive it on the edge everywhere. It's not the best luxury cruiser because it's not as wafty and smooth as I would want. And I think if this was a 50, it might sway my opinion a little bit more, and I think I might actually end up going for that. And then we have the E-Tron, which definitely looks the oldest out of this bunch. It looks dated at this point, if I'm brutally honest. But when you're inside of it, there's no better feeling electric SUV on the market. The way that it's built, the way that it drives, it's not trying to be something different than its intention. The intention of this car is to get you from A to B as comfortably as possible. And I think that's why I don't like the E-Tron S as much. I made the same comments when I drove that car. I'm like, really impressive, 3 motors, quite quick. I would just get the smoother one. Now, if they made the E-Tron S with this luxury suspension, I would go for that. So then it comes down to, out of the iX and the E-Tron, which one would I personally buy today with my own hard-earned money? Again, when we bought the E-Tron, we bought that for Alyssa, not for me. I would probably go for the iX50. I think would be the one that I would buy out of all of these 3. And I think just that next generation tech, I'd try and find an early iX50 with the Bowers & Wilkins sound system used in it. And I can get over the styling. But if I didn't have to take road trips, or if I was just driving around town from A to B, the E-Tron would be it. So as a 1-car solution, you go iX. If you have another road tripping car, you go E-Tron. So these are my opinions. Brandon, what would you go for?
Tesla for technology, BMW for luxury.
Okay, very nice. And Alyssa?
I go for my E-Tron.
So we're keeping the E-Tron.
We're keeping the E-Tron.
Okay, there we go. Because we could trade it for an iX.
No.
Okay, that's fine with me. I love driving this thing, and we would have to find like an S-Class or something else to replace it for that crazy high quality suspension feel that you can't get from anything else. So there you have it. 3 cars fit for 3 different types of people. You can't go wrong with either, and or with any of them. And I can't thank you enough for watching another Out of Spec Reviews video. It's new iPhone day. I saw it sitting on my porch, so I got to go get my new iPhone. See you later. Bye-bye.